telah hadir. Saya Hugo akan jadi moderator untuk diskusi foto kali ini. Seperti kalian ketahui, kita di sini ada di lokasi di Red Rose Center dan ada kebetulan kedatangan tamu dari Lightbox Photo Library, ya, oke. And untuk informasi untuk kalian, Lightbox ini adalah komunitas juga ya yang bergerak sama seperti Red Rose Center, yaitu perpustakaan foto ya yang sifatnya bebas, free untuk semua juga ya. Fungsinya untuk untuk menyebarluaskan beberapa hasil foto teman-teman fotografer dan juga mengkoleksi atau menyimpan seluruh beberapa hasil foto yang sifatnya akan menjadi perkembangan untuk fotografi kreatif juga ya. Untuk ini kalau kita lihat sini Lightbox ini lebih terfokus kepada fotografi kontemporer. Untuk yang perlu diketahui, fotografer kontemporer ini adalah fotografi yang lahir dari mungkin tahun 1980 sampai sekarang ya, jadi gitu. Jadi sangat berkaitan dengan foto jurnalistik, foto sejarah dan lain-lain. Cuman di sini kita lebih penekanannya secara historical ya, secara sejarah. Mungkin selanjutnya akan langsung dilanjut oleh ini Liang, ya. And then, salah, ini Liang, maaf. I'm so sorry for that. Tadi posisinya duduknya di sana. Liang and Chang ya, gitu. Gitu aja. Mungkin bisa langsung. You may start your.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Liang. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Today's talk would be consist in two parts. My colleague, Chin-Wei Zhang, would start and then give everyone an overview of the modern history of Taiwanese photography, modern history of Taiwan, and his views on the development of photography in Taiwan. And I would do my part as well, but my perspective and experience is slightly different from Ozzy's. So we do that in the spirit of the title of the talk. You can tell that we have two accounts of the history. How we see we're from different generation. Yeah, apparently she's from is very younger than me, and then the way we see the history, the past, is slightly different. But so we don't want it to give you one account only, because since we're two people here, so we decided to divide our talk in two parts. So you may find some similarities, but perhaps you can also spot some differences between us, but that's okay. And conflict is a sign of democracy. So so it's a very democratic conversation. And then and last but not least, thank you Wahyu, thank you Grace, and thank you Baskara for inviting us to here and for taking care of us for the past 2 days. It's been wonderful. It's our first time in Bandung and actually in Indonesia. So we look forward to the conversation and discussion we may have. And and thank you, Hugo, for kindly moderating this event. And so I will stop, and then Ozzy will begin the presentation.
Ya, thank you everyone.
Oke, jadi ini presentasinya akan dibagi dua bagian ya. Nanti akan sama Chin-Wei dulu, kemudian sama Liang. Mereka akan mempresentasikan hal yang berbeda, cuman pasti akan menemukan perbedaan dan persamaan ya. Jadi ada dua perspektif sama Liang dan Chin-Wei. mereka sangat terbuka untuk diskusi, jadi jangan ragu untuk bertanya atau kalau kalian punya pendapat atau misalkan opini ya terkait apa yang setelah mereka presentasikan, bisa nanti ada sesi pertanyaan, tanya dan jawab di akhir presentasi mereka ya, gitu aja. Mungkin sekian aja, silahkan. You may start your presentation, Chin-Wei. Okay, start with Chin-Wei.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming here, and I will start from giving you guys an overview of Taiwanese modern history. But I'm not just like telling you guys the overview of Taiwanese modern history, but I would like to telling you in the perspective of photography and photo books, and trying to describe the relationship between Taiwanese modern history and photo books. So I will start from the Qing Dynasty period, which is all the Qing Dynasty is a dynasty from China, and this period is kind of like the first period that there's the images or the photographies of Taiwan appears in this period. So this period will be my start. And after the Qing Dynasty, Qing Dynasty period, it becomes to Japanese period, and like maybe ordered by the Japanese government for like 50 years. And after the World War II, Japanese is defeated by Americans, so they kind of like they can't order Taiwan anymore. So they just get out from Taiwan, and the KMT, the Kuomintang, is like a government, a political party from China comes from China to Taiwan, and they just ordered Taiwan since 1945. And in this period is kind of very it's a really weird period that happens a lot of things, including the February 28th incident, which I will give you a little bit context of this incident. Is like the government, Kuomintang, the government, they kill innocent people, but because they trying to like they found someone is selling cigarette that is forbidden by the government, and they're trying to like
Crack down on the
crack down, but they just kill the innocent people accidentally. Yeah, so this incident is like the conflict. The conflict start from this incident, and the government realized that they can order the Taiwanese people really well, so they trying to get into the martial law period, and this period we so-called the White Terror period. So why do we call this period like White Terror period? Is because in this period the government, they are just like surveillancing the civilians of Taiwan, and they put in some spies, some secret agents in the society and maybe in your neighborhood, and they trying to control the peoples and the thoughts of Taiwanese people, and Taiwanese people cannot like trying to criticize the government or trying to say something that government doesn't like. So it calls the White Terror period. And in this period, is from 1949 to 1987, and at the end of this period is also a movement called Taiwanization movement, which it names in Chinese in like 乡土运动, and its moment is like Taiwanese people is trying to find the identity of Taiwan, and then just trying to figure out what is the subjectivity of Taiwanese, and they trying to figure out by like creating some arts and including for the photographies, and after this movement, there's two incidents. The first one called Kaohsiung Formosa incident, 美丽岛事件, and another one called Liu incident, is like Jiangnam An. And these two incidents is quite important because due to these two incidents, the government got lots of pressure from societies and also from Americans, and they can't really hold their authority of their legitimacy of the ruling Taiwan, so they need to lifting of the martial law in 1987. And after that, we kind of trying to move into the democracy period, and in 20,000, and there's a transition of power that the president is changing from KMT to another political party called Democratic Progressive Party, DPP. And yeah, that's kind of the democratic movement in Taiwan in the modern area. And also there's another incident, another movement called Sunflower Student Movement happened in 2014, and I will describe this movement later. So this is an overview of the Taiwanese modern history, and in the following speech I will try to explain and trying to give you some context between this modern history and photographies and photo books.
Okay, thank you. Wait a minute.
Sorry.
Okay, let me tell them first. Okay, jadi tadi Chin-Wei itu menjelaskan tentang sejarah keseluruhan Taiwan ya, yang itu dimulai dari tadi ada. Jadi untuk kalian ketahui, jadi Taiwan itu asalnya itu berasal dari daerah kekuasaan Cina ya, daerah dinasti Qing. Nah, tadi ada dinasti Qing, kemudian dijajah oleh Jepang, kemudian merdeka bertepatan dengan kemerdekaan kita tahun 1945. Kemudian ada tadi Kuomintang. Kuomintang itu partai di Tiongkok ya, semacam partai Tiongkok yang sangat tua, yang pertama kali yang mendeklarasi, yang berkuasa, partai yang paling berkuasa di sana dan paling tua di Taiwan. Jadi tadi singkatannya KMT di situ ya. Jadi ada beberapa insiden dan peristiwa yang terjadi di sana. Jadi ada menurunkan beberapa agensi dari partai di sela-sela masyarakat mereka untuk mengontrol pemikiran rakyatnya. Terus ada yang tadi lewat bela diri dan segala macam ya, banyak. Saya agak lupa, boleh lihat. Can I take a look the previous slide? Okay. And then tadi ada transition of power. Jadi dari KMT tadi yang partai itu kalau kita tuh kayak apa ya? Kayak partai kan ngomong disebutnya. Pokoknya itu ya, partai paling besar di sana terus berubah jadi demokrasi ya. Kemudian jadi demokrasi di tahun 2000. Jadi transition. Ya, jadi asalnya kan mereka KMT, jadi kayak satu pucuk pemimpin gitu ya. Kemudian berubah jadi demokrasi kayak kemudian jadi ada Sunflower Student Movement juga sama sejenis itulah kira-kira. Okay, you may continue your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so start from the Qin Dynasty period. In this period, the photographers came to Taiwan by many different reasons, and the photographers also have another identities, like the missionaries, the politicians, and someone from Western who are looking for the business opportunities, or maybe like the travelers, they travel to Taiwan or maybe the East Asia. And in this period, actually the first photo book named it in Taiwan, or we can call it Formosa in that period, was actually made by this period, and it's made by a Westerner called George Uvedal Price, and the book is there, so you can just take a look. And I was trying to outline some important or maybe some iconic photographers in this era. So the first one is John Thompson. He's a English person, and the book is also showing there the red one in the red covers. And the second one is Legender. We can call it Legender. And this one, Note of Travel in Formosa, is his book. I will explain later. And the third one is, as I said, George Woods Prize. And the fourth one is Saint Julian Hugh Edwards. And another one is a missionary called Marquet. So, photo books in this era were made for some personal reasons. Maybe they put the photo book in another context, which is actually out of Taiwan. For instance, Legender, this book, Note of Travel in Formosa, is actually more like a investigation book. So it collects lots of some geographical, some business, some economists, and some vernacular research of Taiwanese. And actually, Legender is a politician, which he works for America, and he has he works in Xiamen at this period, and he wanted to get promoted, so he tried to make this book for the Japanese, to let them wanted to fight with the China and trying to get control of Taiwanese. So this book is actually the tool that can make Legender get promoted in the first context. But actually there's a lot of photos in this book, so we could call it photo book in some way. And I will say that the cause of these two periods, from the Qing period to Japanese period, or I would say why Japanese wanted to occupy Taiwan, is kind of because Legender give the Japanese government this book, and they have some information about Taiwan, and they can get to know more details about Taiwan, so they can they can plan some strategies to attack Taiwan and trying to defeat China. Yeah, so the photo book is not just the personal creations or for our sake. It's actually very political and actually really related to the society and the histories. And on the right side, this one is by John Thompson, and this is the original one called Illustrations of China and its people. Yeah, and I think John Thompson doesn't really know the relationship or which country or which nation is actually was in 19th century, and he is kind of like a traveler from England, and he's making this book for his personal benefits. He's selling this book as a travel notes to the English people, and they in that era they really like to see some adventures to some they call it an exotic place, which is like the East Asia. And yeah, so this photo book is actually fitting the personal benefits of John Thompson. So it's not, as I said before, it's not just a personal creation. It's also in a special society context. And yeah, so okay, so.
Oke, jadi kata Chin-Wei ini adalah buku pertama yang sebentar. Jadi buku pertama yang ada di Taiwan yang dibuat oleh orang Barat, tepatnya dari orang Inggris. Namanya John Thompson, katanya ada bukunya di sebelah sana, bisa lihat. Kalau yang coklat itu katanya buku yang original, yang aslinya. Kemudian dimodernisasi dari desain dan segala macamnya untuk publikasi. Yang sebelah kiri, yang Notes of Travel in Formosa. Jadi katanya ini tuh bukunya dibuat untuk kepentingan keuntungan. Jadi isinya tuh rencananya John Thompson ini membuat buku ini dengan tujuan untuk dokumentasi perjalanan dia selama berjalan-jalan di Asia, di Taiwan ini ya, Asia, terutama Asia di sini Asia. Dengan itu kemudian mungkin salah satunya dengan tujuan personal ya, itu bisa untuk dijual kembali untuk masyarakat yang ingin tahu ya, ingin tahu tentang perjalanannya si John Thompson ini. Kebanyakan dari buku-buku ini kan salah satunya ya. Kemudian ada buku-buku yang lainnya juga. Kebanyakan pada era ini di King Dynasty period ini, periode Dynasty King ini, kebanyakan bukan untuk kepentingan umum, tapi untuk kepentingan bisnis, mendapatkan keuntungan, untuk mendapatkan promosi jabatan dan lain lah. Jadi kebanyakan tentang kepentingan pribadi, gitu. Mungkin silakan, you may start, continue.
Okay. So moving to the Japanese period, in this period, the photographers is like they are the photographers in this era in this period is under the control of the colonized government, which is the Japanese government, and the Japanese government also sent some anthropologists to Taiwan, and they trying to research the indigenous people in Taiwan. So, and the photo book made in this era called Shashincho in Japanese word, and we can call it 写真帖 in Mandarin. And some of the Taiwanese also run a business of photography. They are selling some films, and they trying to take picture for the ordinary peoples, and they set up some studio called 写真馆. In English, we can translate it to photo studios. And some iconic photographers in this period, like Tori Yurizo is an anthropologist, and Mori Yoshinosuke is also an anthropologist, and Kanori is also an anthropologist, and Deng Nanguang is a Taiwanese, is a native photographer who go abroad and study in Japan, and Zhang Qingyan is another doctor in Taiwan, and he is kind of a rich man, so he can buy a lot of cameras to shooting his families and his daily life. And the photo book or the Shashincho made in Japanese period is actually full of the purpose of propaganda. They trying to tell Taiwanese people and the Japanese government that they are ordering Taiwan really well, and they are building a very good society in the colonial then Taiwan. And also they are trying to use the Shashincho to announcing some governmental decrees, and they also do some vernacular research, or we can call it the folk studies. They're trying to study Taiwanese people and their culture, their religions in Taiwan. And also the Shashincho is for documentary of the war, which we show it in this exhibition. And also the photo book is trying to document the daily life in this period. But the daily life, the part of daily life is like shooting by the Taiwanese photographers, and the others is shot by the Japanese photographers. So this one, the green one, the green one is like the documentary of their defeating China, and they are just have the control of the Taiwan, so they attack Taiwan for the first time, and they document some photos of this war. And this one is actually from the anthropologist I just mentioned, called Mori Yoshinosuke, and is like researching and photographing some indigenous people for the use of anthropology. And this one is kind of like they are trying to introduce some landscapes and some beautiful place in Taiwan for Japanese to travel to Taiwan in the Japanese period. And this one is the vernacular studies, the folk studies of Taiwanese, and they publish a lot of books in this series called Minsu Taiwan, the folk studies of Taiwan. And let's in this period, the use of a photo book in this period. And
Oke, jadi ini menjelaskan tadi kan pernah dijajah ya si Taiwan ini, daerah Taiwan ini dijajah oleh Jepang. Banyakan kena jajah ini banyak fotografer atau tepatnya masyarakat Taiwan yang mendapatkan pengalaman untuk kuliah lah atau belajar kembali di Jepang. Tapi sebagai jurusannya antropologi katanya ya. Cuman di sini mereka memulai karir fotografinya karena belajar dengan antropologi, belajar fotografi. Akhirnya setelah mereka pulang dari Jepang, mereka ada yang memulai beberapa bisnis dalam fotografi, yaitu tadi ada bikin studio foto, ada yang bikin buku foto. Cuman bedanya di sini buku foto di zaman ini tadi banyak yang melalui pendekatan lebih pengetahuan untuk mendokumentasikan kegiatan sehari-hari gitu ya. Jadi bukan untuk kepentingan yang tadi awal itu untuk bisnis, keuntungan, pokoknya yang pribadi-pribadi. Tapi ini lebih ke untuk umum ya, lebih untuk pengetahuan dan lain-lain.
Okay, so move from Japanese period to the Kuomintang period. So in this period, there's a lot of native photographers, which means the Taiwanese photographers, but they can't actually shoot or create some image they want because of the martial law. And because the forbidden of some provocative thoughts, so the photographers in this period they kind of they can only shoot something that is non-political, like the landscapes and some ladies, the beautiful girls, and the rural life and the daily life of the ordinary people. Like it's not the government can see any political in the images. And also in this period, it's also in the Cold War era. And the KMT is accept the United States aid to develop some modern techniques of farming and building some infrastructures and stabilizing the value of currencies. So, why American is trying to help KMT is because they are trying to build a line of the democracy, and they're trying to group up some democracy countries in that area to fight the communities, and they're trying to promote a sort of anti-communism, in that area. So they are fighting China actually. So they came to Taiwan and they start two organizations. The first one called Sino-American Joint Commission on Rural Reconstructions. We can call it ACRR. And another one is like the United States Information Agency, USIA. And these two organizations not only like building some infrastructures or teaching us some modern techniques of farming, they also documenting and making a lot of some images and some visual archives to archiving what they're doing in Taiwan in this era. So let's so this one called Feng Nian, like harvesting, is a magazine that is published by JCRR, and this magazine is trying to showing some latest information about farming in that era, and they are documenting some some works they are working in Taiwan and how they teaching the modern techniques to the farmer in Taiwan. And this one is published by a native Taiwanese photographer called Zheng Shangxi, and it's a really iconic example of like they are shooting some ordinary people's life and they're shooting some non-political images. Yeah, and this one I don't mention at the top is actually shoot by a missionary called Fred Foley, Fu Liangfu, and the face of Taiwan is like also like shooting some rural life and some ordinary peoples in Taiwan. Yeah, so.
Jadi di masa ini yaitu Kuomintang ya tadi ya, yang partainya mulai menguasai seluruh Taiwan, mulailah banyak lahir fotografer asli orang Taiwan. Jadi kebanyakan udah pasti banyak ya. Terus mulai lahir juga komunitas fotografi di sini. Terus cuman perbedaan tadi yang era Kuomintang sama yang tadi periode Jepang. Kalau pada era ini nggak boleh bahas sesuatu yang berbau politik. Jadi ini lebih fokus pada pemandangan alam, perempuan-perempuannya, kehidupan pedesaan ya, terus kehidupan sehari-hari dan orang-orang. Jadi udah nggak boleh yang berhubungan dengan tadi yang for business purpose atau kepentingan bisnis, kepentingan pribadi, itu udah nggak boleh. Apalagi berhubungan dengan politik ya, nggak boleh. Terus di sini ada bukunya tadi, bentar. Can I take a look can I take a look? Oke, ini ada yang bawah yang ada gambar kerbau. Can you a bit down? Oke. Ini ada gambar kerbau. Di sini tuh bukunya tentang peternakan modern karena mereka udah dapat suntikan dana bantuan lah, jangan suntikan dana bantuan dari Amerika ya, USA. Jadi dari segi modern, pembangunan dan peternakan, teknologi peternakan. Jadi ini dokumentasinya dalam buku ya, dan ini juga contoh-contoh. Kalau Face of Taiwan itu udah jelas ya, dari itu ladies kayaknya atau orang-orangnya ya, udah jelas kayak portrait. Oke.
Yeah, and for a little bit additional information I didn't mention before is like in this area there's some native photographers that are organizing a photo lover club called Yinghui, and is welcome the people that is interested or is really like to take some photographs in that area. So they are different from the photo studio in the Japanese area. Like the photo studio is more like selling some equipment of photographies, but in the Yinghui, in the photo lover club, is more like creating a space for the photo lovers to changing their experiences of photographing and creating the photographs. Yeah.
Tadi sudah disampaikan sebenarnya sama seperti yang saya sampaikan tadi, cuman tadi ada bedanya di sini lebih ke komunitas fotonya ya, sama sih sebenarnya ke komunitas kita sehari-hari kayak gimana ya, proyek-proyek bikin ya macam-macam lah ya, macam itu.
Sure. So and move to another period that is actually in the martial law is like the movement of the Taiwanization, 乡土运动, and it's happened in the 70s. Like the Taiwan is actually experiencing a series of international incidents, like withdrawal from the UN in 1971 and cutting diplomatic ties with lots of countries. And the first oil crisis is happening in 1973. So this bunch of incidents led the local artists and the societies trying to reconsider the problem of we are over westernizations in the past few years, and actually there's some trend sentence called 来台大去美国, and I will translate it in English. It's like if you want to get a good future and you trying to make some big monies, you can go to Taiwan University in Taiwan, and if you want to go abroad, you just go to America. And they are trying to reconsider the ideology or in this sentence, like they are really like the Western cultures and they think that Western is the best. So they're trying to reconsider it, and they're trying to rediscover and rebuild the identities of Taiwan and figure out what exactly Taiwan is. So yeah, it's kind of like building up some subjectivities of Taiwan in the Taiwanization movement. And this movement is influenced some photographers. For instance, like Zhang Zhaotang is an iconic photographer in Taiwan. and another one called Liang-Pin, and also influenced an author called Chin-Wei Zhang, who started a photography-related magazine called Renjian. This one, on the right, this one, Renjian. Yeah, and it's actually started on 1985, but I will say that the thought and why Chen Yingzhen will start the Renjian is actually influenced by the Taiwanization movement. So I will just put it in this era. So, and also the documentary photography is really popular in this era, and they are actually more popular in 80s. But as I said before, I will consider that the documentary photographers in 80s is influenced by the Taiwanization movement. So I will just put it in this era. So the right one is, as I said, is Renjian, a magazine that is photography related, and they are documenting some incidents in Taiwan at that period. And another one is made by this photographer called Liang-Pin, and the title of this book is called Taiwan Xinjiao. It's like traveling around in Taiwan and just photographing and documenting the Taiwanese landscape and trying to figure out what exactly the Taiwanese people lived in that era. Yeah, so
di era Taiwanization ini banyak terjadi insiden-insiden yang sifatnya internasional dan juga yang mempengaruhi keadaan atau situasi di dalam Taiwan itu sendiri. Makanya banyak kayak kalau movement di sini bisa diartikan kayak semacam kayak demo atau misalkan ada pergerakan-pergerakan saya tidak setuju atau saya setuju persetujuan atau dengan pemerintah atau enggak setuju dan segala macam. Nah, ini didokumentasikan oleh fotografer pada zaman Taiwanization ini yaitu tahun 70-an ya. Ya. Oke. Ya, jadi itu ya. Di bawah kalimatnya ada documentary photography which happen. Jadi semacam kayak fotografer dokumentasi yang terjadi tahun 80-an yang dipengaruhi oleh pergerakan Taiwan. Ya kayak semacam yang tadi udah disebutkan.
Okay. So we are heading to lifting of the martial law is happening at 1987, and by lifting of the martial law, there was a huge energy start to explode in Taiwanese society, not only in terms of the political climate, but also in terms of the creation of photography. So and also, by the way, the Taiwanese New Wave cinema movement is actually happened in this era from 1982 to 1987. Yeah. So the documentary photography, as I said before, is a main genre in this era, 80 to 90s. And Zhang Zhaotang, as I mentioned, and Xie Santai, Wang Xin, Liu Zhenxiang, and Pan Xiaoxia, lots of photographers that they are actually also journalists, photography journalists, and they're trying to doing some creations in after their photography journalist work, and they are trying to document lots of Taiwanese people's life in that era. And yeah, but I would say Zhang Zhaotang is a special example. He is like in a special case. So his work is like, it looks like other photographers like they are documenting the daily life in Taiwanese in this era, but actually he's not trying to reflect the face of society or the true face of the society, but he's trying to dig into himself and trying to reflect the relationship between him and the society. So he's trying to expressing how he feels in living in this society. It's kind of like, yeah. So it's a special example. Is a special photographer in that era, and by documenting the daily life of Taiwanese, the photographer is trying to reveal the truth of life in Taiwan and they are focused on some journalistic themes, like they were trying to photographing some incident or some accidents happen in that era, and then trying to reveal that the incident that will be buried or covered by the KMT government, but they are lifting of the martial law, so they can't cover or bury the incident or something that is bad for the governments anymore. So the photographers in trying to reveal, they have a strong desire to reveal the truth of Taiwan, because in the era of martial law, they can't do these things. Yeah, so this one is by Pan Xiaoxia, and this one is by Wang Xin, and they are both documenting the indigenous people and the rural life in Lanyu Island, island that is Lanyu Island, and this one is shoot by Zhang Zhaotang. It's an iconic photography from Zhang Zhaotang. If you have a little bit familiar with the Taiwanese photographies, yeah. So.
Okay. Kalau ini tadi di masa ini ya mengangkat lifting sini kayak hukum-hukum perang di sini waktu Allah itu. Jadi mengangkat tema hukum yang keadaan sehabis perang ini, jadi jadi di era ini banyak diangkat jadi fotografer tema dokumenter. Jadi dokumenter yang kemudian lahirnya lah di sini mulai banyak fotografer yang menjadikan fotojurnalism atau fotojurnalistik sebagai aliran tipe aliran fotografi yang jadi topik atau jadi poin utama, atau misalkan yang banyak digandrungi oleh para fotografer pada zaman ini. Jadi pada tahun ini juga, pada 1887 ini juga awal mulanya lahirnya fotografer kontemporer di negara Taiwan ini sendiri. Ini contohnya buku-buku yang di bawah ya, yang udah disampaikan. Ini ada contohnya tadi. Nah, itu. Jadi ya, oke. Bawa ke atas lagi sedikit. Oke. Ya, tadi udah disampaikan. Gitu aja. Oke.
Okay, so and in the last era, I call it contemporary era, but I'm questioning the concept of contemporary actually, and I think it's hard to define when and what Taiwanese contemporary photography is, or when it starts. And the term I use here, the term I use here is actually more like a time tense to distinguish the period from the whole histories. So it's like I'm not trying to use this word contemporary as a word as a terms of the world history of photography. Like they have a clear definition about the contemporary photography, which is actually after the post-conceptual photography. But I'm not using this term in that context. I'm just trying to put it in the time tense. Yeah. So after the documentary photography, there's much variety of photography genres appear in this era. And actually, I think it started around like 1995. And in this era, it's really a lot of photographers I can't really show you here. And I just mentioned 4 photographers like Yao Ruizhong. The first one, Yao Ruizhong, and the second one is Zhong Sunlong, and the third one is Li Hao, and the fourth one is Chen Yixuan. And it refers to, this one is Yao Ruizhong, this one is Zhong Sunlong, and this one is Li Hao, this one is Chen Yixuan. And these 4 photographers, their main problematic of the photography or presenting their work is quite different. For the first one, Yao Ruizhong is trying to documenting the statue of Buddha in Taiwan, and it's like I think it's influenced by the America photography movement called New Topographic photography. Is happening at maybe like 70s, and this one on the right is by Zhong Shunlong. I think it's actually influenced by the new topographic movement, but he's trying to documenting the new landscape, the new industrial landscape in Taiwan. And the third one, Li Hao, is hard to explain because he's trying to explore the relationship between photography and some physics series. And yeah, so he's trying to point out the unpredictable and some physics stuff that is actually happening in photographies that no one have mentioned or noticed before. And the last one, Chen Yixuan, is he's trying to express his emotions by traveling between America and Taiwan, and it's hard to explain as well. But yeah, so four of the photographers is dealing with really different topics in their photography creations, and I would say in past eras is kind of we can tell a main genre like the documentary photographies or like propaganda photographies in the past eras, but in the contemporary era we can't really like tell a really main genre that photographers wanted to try or wanted to deal with. And I think this era is like more diversity and more different thoughts coming up in the present days. So this is like a overview of the Taiwanese modern history and the relationship between the photo books and the modern history. And I'm trying to have a quick sum up. It's like I'm trying to say that photography or the creation of photography is not just it's not just in the field of art or like of art's sake. It's actually highly related to the society and the histories. So we can see that lots of photo books and photographers they are trying to reflecting the current society or the current period, or they are like trying to or why the photo book was be made it is because the special context of history or the special society. Yeah, and last but not least is that I think why we are trying to use histories, perspectives, and experience. We are using the polarities. Is because we think that history is not just have one interpretations. It actually have lots of interpretation by many peoples, by many ideologies, and even I will even say that history is an invention by all of you guys, by all of the peoples that is trying to interpret the history, trying to figure out what happened before. So yeah, we're trying to destroy the canon history that is actually ordered by the KMT government in the past areas, and they are trying to hold in the right and the power of describing histories to make benefits of the party. And actually they are still alive in Taiwan, and they got a bunch of supporters So yeah, so we are trying to. I will not say we are trying to like let people know the truth about the history, because the truth is actually defined by many people, by many thoughts. But we are trying to give another interpretation or another way to know about the history of Taiwan. So yeah, that's all, and I will pass to Liang.
Okay, can I take a look on the previous slide, the last slide actually, about contemporary. Ya, tadi kan saya sampaikan bahwa contemporary itu udah tahun 80-an ya. Cuman di sini Taiwanization ini di contemporary era ini lahir pada 2000-an ya. Nah, pada era ini banyak lahir fotografer-fotografer yang sifatnya makin bervariasi ya. Terutama mulai banyak pendekatan karena tadi ada banyak masukan teknologi dari Amerika Serikat, juga begitu dengan pengetahuannya dan lain-lain ya, dan juga mempengaruhi fotografi di Taiwan itu sendiri. Jadi tadi ada fotonya ke arah arsitektur, ada yang ke arah ke budaya, dan ada juga lebih ke artistik juga tadi ada ya. Di sini juga jadi hal ini juga menimbulkan banyak permasalahan ya. Cuma nanti mungkin permasalahannya bisa tanyakan sendiri nanti. Mereka kurang begitu menjelaskan. And then terus apalagi tadi tuh. Saya lupa. Oke. Can I take a look on the picture? Ya itu, jadi ini mereka mencontohkan beberapa contoh hasil foto yang dihasilkan para fotografer di Taiwan dengan berbagai variasinya ya, tadi arsitektur, budaya, dan terus mereka juga menyampaikan bahwa fotografi itu tidak hanya berkaitan sesuatu hal yang berkaitan dengan artistik ya, tapi bisa juga berkaitan dengan sejarah ya, terutama sejarah-sejarah yang sangat penting bagi negara, khususnya di sini Taiwan. Mereka menyampaikan di Taiwan mungkin bisa juga diadopsi kayak di negara kita juga, sejarah kita mengetahui ya, jadi tahu gambaran-gambaran visual di masa lalu seperti apa. Nah, mereka menyampaikan intinya seperti itu. Jadi dengan fotografi juga bisa bermanfaat untuk orang-orang mengetahui apa yang terjadi pada sebelum-sebelumnya, pada era-era sebelumnya gitu. Jadi itu salah satu manfaatnya. Segitu.
Okay, thank you. So we'll pass to Liang.
Okay. I will do this. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to make it quick so we can go to the discussion session. So to begin with, I think this is the main message that I wanted to borrow the idea from this black feminist called Audre Lorde. He used to say women are powerful and dangerous. I think that the same thing applies to photography. Photography is powerful and dangerous. I think that would be the main idea about this talk. All right. So the research, excuse me. So to me, the research questions for this exhibition are as follows. The first one is we're trying to understand. We're trying to introduce to you what is Taiwanese photography, but at the same time we're also reflecting on that. And secondly, how do we define Taiwanese photography? And then we also have to be careful that what we don't talk about when we talk about the history of Taiwanese photography, what's been left out or overlooked, and as how to understand the history of photography in Taiwan. That's another thing. And last but not the least, what are the key contexts if we are to understand contemporary photography in Taiwan? Sorry, that was a typo. And lastly, how do we write the history, perspective, and experience of Taiwanese photography? That's basically sum up the question that we have and the discussion I have with Chin-Wei. So I'll begin with questions. Yeah.
Oke, jadi kita menjelaskan dia katanya fotografer itu adalah kuat dan berbahaya, di sini judulnya memenya ya, katanya memenya. Terus di sini katanya mereka punya beberapa pertanyaan-pertanyaan untuk riset yang mungkin banyak ditanyakan atau bisa membantu kalian memahami dari konteks ini. Itu adalah apa itu fotografi Taiwan dan bagaimana kita mendefinisikan fotografi Taiwan. Apa yang kita nggak bicarakan tentang tentang sejarah dari Taiwan itu sendiri, sejarah fotografi itu Taiwan sendiri. Terus apakah kunci dari
Sorry.
Okay.
Make it small so you could do it. Yeah.
Oke, ya tadi udah bagaimana memahami dari sejarah fotografi di Taiwan, dan tadi you may continue the slide. Okay, please, thank you.
Okay. So I'll just keep on. Okay.
Okay, the upper one. Okay.
Okay.
The upper side. Okay, thank you. Okay. Apa itu adalah konteks kunci apabila kita ingin mengerti dari fotografer kontemporer di Taiwan, bagaimana kita menulis sejarah, perspektif, dan pengalaman dari fotografer Taiwan. Baru segitu aja sih. Jadi mereka akan jelasin apa aja. Gitu aja. You may start.
Okay, this is the flag. I just want to show you this flag, not because it's considered a national treasure. It was assigned. It was assigned by the Ministry of Culture that the national treasure. It's the flag of the short-lived Republic of Formosa in 1895, right before the arrival of Japanese troop. There was really a Republic of Formosa, and then they have their own armies and laws and currencies and stuff. And the reason I'm showing this is that to me, I'm just gonna, yeah. The idea, to me, the idea of preserving the photographic culture of Taiwan is to protect the freedom of human minds and the independence of human spirit in Taiwan. That's the idea of why we're doing this. Why we trying to answer the question, trying to reflect upon the question. Yeah.
Jadi ini tadi ini bendera dari Republik Formosa melambangkan beberapa hal. Can you explain again about the meaning of the flag? I forget about the point.
The flag is it was created during the Republic, the short-lived Republic of Formosa in 1895, right before the Japanese army came to Taiwan to take over Taiwan.
Jadi sebelum Jepang datang ke Taiwan.
And then the reason why we're trying to preserve or talk about the photographic culture of Taiwan is really to protect the freedom of human minds and the independence of human spirit in Taiwan.
Untuk melindungi melindungi pikiran dan ide masyarakat Taiwan untuk untuk bisa terus bersuara atau berpikir secara bebas.
Okay. All right. And this is the outline of my short talk. And the first one, I will give you a very brief introduction of Taiwan, which Chin-Wei did pretty well. But I just want to add one thing. And secondly, I would discuss the periodization of the history of photography in Taiwan. And third one is the conceptualization of each historical period. And of course, we go to the discussion time session. Yeah, dozo.
Okay, yeah, jadi you may continue I will explain.
Yeah, sure.
Overall.
Okay, sure. So Taiwan in a very in one sentence. That's the main message I wanted to convey. Taiwan is not China. That's all you need to know. It's not China. It's more than China. That's the message. Even the kitty knows. Okay. Just give you an example, but it's not an easy message that to come by. Let me show you the example of how the change of our passport. In 1977, and 45 years ago, our passport was something like this. You can tell it says the passport of the Republic of China. Still, the idea of like the Republic of China, of the free China, the post-Cold War idea is still there. And then gradually, in the 80s, you still see that Republic of China on the passport. So we always get confused by the outsiders. Like, are you in Taiwan? Are you from Taiwan or China? It's like, it's really it's horrible. But fortunately, finally, in 2020, we finally has a passport that specifies that this is a Taiwan passport. Although the official name is called the Republic of China, but this is what most people would like to use. And in 2 years, the Taiwan has grown bigger, so you can see that it's finally, and the idea of China is like it's almost nowhere to be seen, but it's here. So yeah, so it's not totally gone. We respect people who like maybe 4% of people still consider themselves Chinese, but it's okay. But it's there. Yeah, they can live in a history, but yeah, it's fine. But the idea is this. A Taiwan passport, okay? So this is the message, a very short introduction. Of course, very personal, but yeah.
Oke. Ya, jadi tadi mereka menjelaskan bahwa perbedaan, jadi Taiwan itu Taiwan, bukan Cina ya. Jadi Taiwan itu lebih dari sekedar Cina. Kenapa mereka ingin menekankan hal ini? Karena banyak di masyarakat Cina sendiri atau Taiwan itu sendiri yang menanyakan, kamu dari Cina bukan, kamu dari Taiwan bukan. Jadi kayak semacam perbedaan kelompok masyarakat ya. Makanya di sini diperlihatkan dari pasport, dari pasportnya mereka merubah banyak desainnya yang dari asalnya berubah dari Cina, kemudian ada tulisan Taiwan supaya menekankan bahwa aku dari Taiwan loh, gini. Jadi ya itu yang lebih menekankan perbedaan masyarakat. Jadi perubahan dari paspor itu sendiri. Makanya dibedakan pasportnya. Oke.
Okay, and of course, the way I would prioritize the history of Taiwan is very similar to Chin-Wei. We could, if we are to understand the modern history of Taiwan, the easiest one is to divide it before the 1895, where the Japanese army came to Taiwan to take over, to control us. And before that period of time, I would say I wouldn't use the word called Qing Dynasty, because the term Qing Dynasty is really viewed from the Han people, but it's wrong. It's a really distorted view of history. That wasn't the Manchu people wouldn't call themselves Qing Dynasty. They don't call themselves that. It was the Great Qing Empire, or an empire led by Manchu people. And Manchu people is very different from the Han people. But the Chinese people like to internalize things, the fiction, create fiction that doesn't belong to them. So to really so the naming is really important. It's not Qing Dynasty. That's how they want you to believe, but it's not. You really have to respect the Manchu people, how they perceive themselves and how they deal with the international relations. So that's before 1895, Taiwan was in a way managed by the Qing Empire. And then, of course, the Opium Wars and all that, the Japanese took over Taiwan and ruled Taiwan for 50 years. There was the Japanese colonial period. And then we entered another colonization by the Nationalist Party, who came to Taiwan in 1945, and they like to turn it as a glorious takeover, glorious retrocession, but in fact they were defeated by the Communist Party in China, but they have really it's really distorted view and then of the history, and that's how I was indoctrinated when I was young. So when I learned the truths, I was like, yeah, and that period was really a period of white terror. A lot of like the progressive people or like liberty-loving people, they were prosecuted, they were put in prison, and they live a horrible life. And the state violence were really pervasive, and there's still injustice. They're out there, so a lot of things to be done. And then finally, after the 1987, it was the end of the martial law and kind of the beginning of the democratization. But the thing is, the end of martial law is never the mercy of the government. No, it's really the persistence and resistance from the people. It's never the government, and it's hard earned. But some would argue it would be the 2 years later, 1989, where people had the right to finally form or establish a political party. So that was more important. And everyone knows in 1989 in China, it was the June 4th movement incident. The Communist Party was killing students and still denying it. But in Taiwan, that was a turning point. And in Taiwan, it was the other way around. We're going to the path of more and more freedom and democracy. But in China, that was like no way back. And they're going backwards in terms of democracy. And so that was the post 1987. And also, I would like to also not really predict, but to express my concern of what happened now in terms of photography, but also the future of Taiwan, or in general, just a personal observation. So that's how I would prioritize the history of Taiwan. Sorry, that was a bit wordy.
Tadi intinya mereka tuh menyampaikan mereka tuh nggak suka mereka pernah dipimpin oleh dinasti King gitu ya. Tapi mereka lebih memilih untuk lebih suka dipimpin oleh Manchu people, katanya masyarakat Manchu katanya di era ini ya, dinasti King ini. Tadi ada di era KMT sama White Terror ini banyak banget yang terjadi seperti di dalam era fotografinya ya. Jadi banyak permasalahan yang terjadi. Contohnya seperti karena mulai dari pengalihan dari kemudi juga yang paham liberal, kemudian banyak violence, jadi kebanyakan kekerasan dan ketidakadilan di zaman ini katanya di KMT dan White Terror ini. Terus tahun 1987 juga di sini mulai banyak masyarakat yang mendirikan partai politik dan banyak masyarakat Taiwan beranggapan bahwa mereka nggak suka melihat gaya pemerintahan Cina yang mereka dianggap itu katanya sudah tua, udah ketinggalan zaman lah katanya, no way back. Oke, gitu aja. Silakan, you may continue.
And next, I would give you a really brief conceptualization of each period and how at least how I perceive each period. For the first period of photography, I would say photography, you could really understand it as photography is the power to acquire image. And what is power? Knowledge is power. What do I mean? during before 1895 and after, of course, the invention of photography, it's the Westerners who control, who has the power, who has the knowledge in instruments and know-how of operating all the stuff. And then when you have the knowledge and the instrument to do it, of course, you have the power and to acquire the image. A lot of people who were in front of the camera have no idea what happened if they have no contact with the, no encounter with the photography before. So in this period of time, the key, to me, the key understanding, the key, a key angle to understand image is that it's the person who has the knowledge, an instrument, have the power to interpret, to describe, to define, basically. And you can see two books in the exhibition, which is really good example of that. But so the history of Taiwan, history of photography in Taiwan really began with being seen and being interpreted, and being described. But the thing is, when we look back at the, when we look back at the history, I don't think we are totally lack of agency. I mean, here. So, but the thing is, this is the early photography. This is the image from the earliest book, the first photo book of Taiwan, at least in the land of Formosa or Taiwan. And you can see, these are apparently staged photography. And you can tell their social relationship. This guy who owns the tea, and then this guy some kind of like assistant, and this like porters, and this one trying to measure the tea. And of course, you can tell their power relationship in this. But I would suggest, although they're being seen and described and being staged, but I would argue there's still some signs of resistance or like agency in the people. But if you look very carefully or like or read it, interpret it creative, there's some signs of resistance. And it's like this guy. This guy looked really confident and he wanted to be photographed. You know, he's a landlord. But this guy is staring at the camera. He's not happy. He's giving you some attitude. I don't want to cooperate, but I have no choice. But at least I'm not going to give you a very good look. So that's, to me, it's a sign. And you could interpret that way. So sometimes being photographed, it's also, there's some agency that you can perform in front of the camera. You don't cooperate. So there's always some, some signs there for us to interpret when we try to find the site, to interpret from the object, the person who was photographed.
Okay, wait a minute.
Okay.
May I explain the photo first?
Yeah.
Because there is too many explanation about the photos.
Oh, okay, sure.
About the photos. Oke, jadi kata Liang tadi ini foto yang diatur intinya ya, stage diatur. Jadi mereka harus foto karena keinginan dari ininya yang menunjukkan bahwa aku punya kekuatan, aku punya kuasa di sini. Cuman sayangnya di sini ingin menunjukkan bahwa ada orang yang tadi yang pakai sebelah yang ini, yang pakai baju semuanya pakai putih. Makanya sebelah ini ya, sebelah kirinya sedikit. Nah, itu dia tidak bekerja sama dengan, tidak mau diatur. Jadi ini menunjukkan keperlawanan bahwa dia tuh nggak mau difoto tapi harus gitu. Berarti kan menunjukkan bahwa ini tuh dia benar-benar diatur tapi ada yang menolak gitu. Aku nggak mau berada dalam foto ini gitu kan. Jadi ini adalah situasi foto pada zaman ini gitu, pada era ini. Oke, silakan. Yeah, baik, keep going. Okay. Okay, well, Jadi di sini Pak Dit ada poin yang pertama juga menyampaikan bahwa pengetahuan dan alat juga bisa mendapatkan kekuatan untuk mendapatkan kekuatan pada zaman itu juga gitu katanya. Silakan.
Okay, during the Japanese period, I think the key way to understanding is to see photography as a means of colonial governance. What do I mean by that? To photograph is basically, to the colonizers' view, is to enlighten. Because in their eyes, what's being photographed is, it means like civilization was there and they were lightened. It's like a torch or flashlight. And you can view the map of Taiwan as darkness. When they have troops and photographers there, they documenting the area, meaning they are brighten up that area of map. So it's kind of a flashlight of photography. So it's like enlighten some area of the map, and it means it's more civilized and more they're making progress. But so that means the subcontext is that anything that's not photographed, it's not visible. It's dark. It's like in the darkness, they're backward and the barbarity. It's a very simple dichotomy, but it's to give you the really brief to explain the history brief. I have to do that, and also what is power in this period of time? It's the visual information is power, and then meaning visibility and modernity go hand in hand. And if you to borrow the idea from the scholar called Martin J, they're trying to create this scopic regime. They have the technology, and they're creating all this norms, social norms, or the standard of life. And then when you look at it and you compare your living situation with that, sometimes you feel you're catching up, but sometimes you feel inferior to the modernity or the civilized world, the more civilized living situation. So that to me is the means of colonial governance. And in short, a lot of Taiwanese back then, they were like secondary citizens. They were educated they're prepared to become Japanese. But the thing is, when they look at the mirror, they know, the culture, in terms of culture, and then language, and then they also celebrate the Japanese holidays. But the thing is, they at the same time they know they are not Japanese, they are Taiwanese. So there's this paradox. They're Japanese, but they are not entirely. And so that's how they the paradox of this the period. Okay.
Di pada zaman ini.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay. Ya, pada zaman ini pemahaman masyarakat Taiwan juga semakin semakin tercerdaskan atau semakin mengetahui bahwa foto itu enggak, jadi membutuhkan pemahaman tentang pencahayaan, progres juga, terus ada yang gelap, ada yang backgroundnya juga, atau butuh masyarakat juga ya sebagai penunggu, sebagai penunjang. Terus untuk menampilkan informasi yang kuat, jadi untuk bisa menampilkan bahwa informasi ini cukup kuat, bisa menjadikan sebagai kekuatan untuk mendukung pemerintahan kolonial ataupun segala macamnya ya, yang berkaitan dengan politik tadi kan bahas tentang politik atau bisnis itu segala macam. Tapi kebanyakan di sini tentang politik mungkin ya. Oke, mungkin segitulah. Itu kayak tadi contoh-contohnya di sini tadi. Kayak pernikahan mereka di situ. Ada 2. Nah, jadi ya semacam itu. Oke, silakan.
And then we're going
ada satu lagi.
Yeah.
I have another confirmation. I forget. Jadi mereka juga disiapkan, tapi mereka di sini paradoksnya adalah mereka itu sebenarnya orang Taiwan, tapi diusahakan untuk seperti menjadi orang Jepang. Nah, di sini di masa-masa ini seperti ini gitu masyarakatnya tuh. Udah segitu.
And so in this period of time during the 1945 to 1985, where the National Party was in power, I think we could see photography as a changing agent in that period of time. And the most important contact would be photography and democracy. And like, to borrow a term from from the Royal Syndicate here, it's called, I think it's from you guys, right? The camera is a tool for fighting and propaganda. And it's very much in the spirit of Rose. And here during the period of time, a lot of like photojournalists or like photography in general, they used camera or photography as a weapon to fight against poverty, resistance, and social injustice. That's the most important, one of the most important thing that you could remember about this period of time. And also, so in this period of time, in this context, to photograph is almost to resist and to reveal the social injustice. And there's some like classic example that are shown in here, like the photographer Koho Jing-tai is about photographing the victims of white terrorists. And then the Wang Xing, the female photographer, one of the earliest female photographer, Wang Xing, he photographed the Aboriginal people, indigenous people who are usually subject to racism in Taiwan, and Guan Xiaorong as well. So so in that period of time, photography is really a changing agent. When people see the photograph from the photojournalist, they would be the evidence of visual evidence is there. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's a sign. I should stop.
Because karena ada azan kita we must together. Okay, thank you for understanding. Okay, we'll have a short break. Okay.
So I'll go ahead. Should I stop or? Okay.
Oke, tadi udah mendengar, jadi ada yang mulai lagi, jadi ya kita mulai aja karena tadi kita sudah. Mungkin tadi kata yang sudah dijelaskan tadi di sini fotografi sebagai agen perubahan melawan rasisme, ketidakadilan sosial dan masalah-masalah yang terjadi pada era tersebut. Jadi fotografi sebagai alat ya, pada agen perubahan untuk terus. Salah satunya adalah kita dari ini kamera SO2. Jadi kamera adalah sebagai alat untuk melawan dan berpropaganda, ya benar ya? Gitu. Oke, silakan.
So of course there's some apolitical work, but I'll skip it anyway. I'll stick to the point. So in the post martial law era, I think it's about the contemporary society and contemporary photography. So one of the most important result of democratization is the idea of heteroglossia, meaning you have so many voices from the bottom up, besides the theme from the government, but besides the theme song from the government, they're trying to prevail. But there are a lot of at least the soundscape of photography is like really it's here and there. So it's multiple voices, and sometimes of course there are noises. But the most important thing from this period of time is that photography used to belongs to the rich people or the knowledgeable people. But in here, the democratization make it popular, so ordinary people have a chance to use it. So it's going from the creative minority in the past to the creative commons. Everyone has the chance to take a part, to make their voice and perspective heard or seen. So that's the most important movement. And the second one is called, of course, heterogeneity. Meaning that's the point that Chin-Wei made before. Like the scene, the subject matter that the contemporary photographer trying to explore was so different, was so diverse. but it's not very. It's an open road. If you are to start your journey as a photographer, it's an open road. You can go your own direction. But the thing is, it would at the same time would be an uphill path because to achieve diversity, to create differences, or to achieve to really achieve your individuality, it's an uphill path. And the most important some of the most important value along the journey would be the idea of the value of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. In short, I would say the key word would be equity. Equity, in brief, is not only the equal opportunity. It's more than that. It's equal power. Okay. So that's the most important thing. Even the photographer and the people you photograph, you have to work really hard to achieve equity. It's not like I'm taking the image from you and that's my image. It's more of a collaboration and deliberation almost. So that's one of the most important idea, equity.
Oke, jadi di sini tadi menyampaikan bahwa hasil dari demokrasi ini juga bisa menghasilkan tadi seperti yang ada di slide ya, heteroglossia dan heterogeneity. Heteroglossia di sini maksudnya adalah untuk semua orang bisa melakukannya ya. Dari kalau dulu kan rasanya cuma orang yang bisa punya pengetahuan atau yang udah cukup kaya bisa melakukannya, tapi ingin yang masyarakat biasa yang kreatif bisa melakukannya, sampai ke kalangan minoritas yang kreatif juga bisa melakukannya gitu. Kalau heteroglossia itu maksudnya ke sana. Terus kalau yang heterogeneity itu jadi kayak tadi menyampaikan penekanannya lebih ke equity ya, kesetaraan, bahwa kalau saya ngambil foto kamu bukan berarti fotonya punya saya aja, tapi ini punya kolaborasi antara kita berdua gitu, antara model atau misalkan objek foto dan fotografernya. Jadi pada era ini mereka sudah memahami akan hal itu gitu. Ya, silakan. You may continue.
Yeah, and here are some examples in the exhibition. You can get a sense of what Taiwanese contemporary society was like through these images. And last but not the least it's what happening now and in near future. I think I would use, it's really weird, but photography for the future, I think we can see photography as a way of hacking. And what do I mean by hacking? We have to understanding in the context of digital democracy, digital photography, and digital democracy. And in the first one, in digital democracy, I think it's the relationship we have dealing with the relationship between photography and manipulation. We're talking about data, AI, artificial intelligence, and computational photography. And the reason, some of you may heard of the term computational photography. Basically, it's your cell phone. And in computational photography, it's different from digital photography. It's basically collecting a lot of data. You don't really need a lens to to make image. Image making has gone from like the past to a different stage where a lot of image can be generated from collecting all the visual data, and then they don't even need to point the camera to our living environment. No, they don't. They just collect enough image. They can generate something new from the historic images. And of course, there are a lot of like AI software we can achieve that. And then maybe a lot of you have heard already years ago about the technology of deepfake, and then they can do it live. They can change and manipulate people's speech at the same time and how they speak. So that would be one of the major concern for the photography that can be used in this way. And also the photography relationship with surveillance capitalism or infotech or biotech. What do I mean? When photography is going hand in hand with surveillance capitalism, the corporation can capitalize on that. They can take advantage of your behavior. They can learn from you. Your online behavior footprint. They can trace you, and also when you're reading the ebook, and your device is actually learning from you. They can know which page you stop, which line when you read, and you have this your heartbeat is getting fast, and your physical reaction, emotional reaction to it. So they can kind of like in the past, the detectors can only documenting the facade, your appearances, but now if someone want to use it, want to know what happened inside your mind, it's possible. And then so the infotech, if they're also doing that with infotech and biotech, they can really hack you. They can manipulate your behavior. They can influence your behavior, and at the same time, and you'll be feeling like, oh, I have this free will and freedom to choose. That's my choice. But in fact, they're already they're manipulating you, and it's not a good sign. It's not a good way to go. So that's what I mean by hacking. If we could, if photography would use by the corporations or the detectors, it would have huge consequences of humanity. And I like to joke, who owns the most camera in the world? I would say it would be the China. They are the biggest collector of camera. If you go to the street, it's all over there. Just like it or not, they can monitor you the real time. If you were like considered breaking the social norm or the social order, you'll be captured like in minutes. But the last place they have for the last place, the public space for freedom without the surveillance camera is maybe toilets. That's why a lot of people in China were like writing something in the toilet. I hope they are not breaking in in that area. That would be unthinkable, but I don't know. Yeah, but you have no idea. And then lastly, photography, the hacking can mean caring. Hacking is caring at the same time. Hacking can be really dangerous, but hacking is caring too. And then also there's this. If the act of photography can be about therapeutic photography, meaning this relationship between image and self-care. Photography can be a way of self-care and also self-knowledge, a way to reflect on your deeds, and also self-determination. This is my choice, this is my perspective. It could be that. And also photography, of course, there's this long tradition of concern photography, but we can use it to address the collective well-being and suffering. And like this, it's about this happiness of this area. So it's really something that we could turn photography into. And lastly, hacking is caring. I mean, to borrow the term from the idea from Azole, he has this book called The Civil Contract of Photography. I think, although the power of photography was concentrated in the few corporations and government, but as a crowd, as a citizen, we are not powerless. We can be powerful, but the thing is, we need to form a community, and collectively and collaboratively, we could make a differences. So it really depends on our value awareness and awareness of this danger, potential danger. So we can see in the future, hopefully we're creating the collaborative documentary or the public document, collaborative notes of our own history We don't rely on the history detected by the powerful, rich and powerful. We as a citizen, we can all contribute a little part. Just a little explanation of what I mean by machine learning AI. According to this expert in Taiwan, machine learning is a type of algorithm that gives computer the ability to learn rules from experience rather than being hard-coded. So that's machine learning. Like the computer is learning from the rules and experiences, and they're like, when you have a lot of data input in the algorithm, they can be so much powerful. And actually, they are affecting our life. If you go to the doctor who has as a machine learning AI, who have all your records of of a health record in the past, they can make really good judgment. But if you're talking to a real person who can barely remember a lot of your records, which one would you which one's advice would you go to? So that's the power of machine learning. And then this one book I would suggest is by I think it's Israel scholar called Azole. He proposed this idea of civil contract photography. I think it's kind of interesting. And this is the book. And I would suggest it's a good read. And I get some inspiration from the text. So last but not least, this is my my talk. And that was me, and that's Lightbox. So if you have traveled to Taipei, please visit us and say hi. I'll make tea or coffee for you, and we can chat. So I think that's it.
Okay. Let's give applause for Liang and Chin-Wei. And I would like to photography as a way of hacking di sini ya. Di sini ada sebagai konteksnya sebagai fotografi digital dan demokrasi digital. Di sini fotografi dan manipulasi. Seperti yang disampaikan tadi, kayak fotografi juga digunakan sebagai alat untuk membuat data atau mengatur data, atau sebagai sumber data yang digunakan untuk membuat sesuatu tadi yang seperti kayak machine learning, kayak misalkan kayak gitu-gitu ya, atau misalkan kayak kalau kita kayak teknologi yang udah kita pakai sekarang kayak etilang ya kayak gitu contohnya. Jadi digunakan terus juga kayak infotech and biotech, jadi udah bisa mengenali wajah-wajah dan segala macam ya. Terus sebagai alat untuk menggali informasi ya, infotech. Terus di sini sebagai fotografi bisa digunakan sebagai media terapi di sini ya, sebagai self care, sebagai pembelajaran buat diri kita sendiri, atau untuk supaya kita menjadi makhluk yang lebih baik gitu ya. Self care juga untuk menganalisa kita sendiri juga apa yang salah gitu ya. Terus sebagai media terapi. Terus di sini hacking is caring. Ini tadi udah ya. Civil contract ini karyanya Ozley. And then tadi udah ya, machine learning. Jadi a type of algorithm. Jadi algoritma di sini ternyata pada saat ini mesin sudah tidak perlu di hard coded itu diketik sendiri ya. Tapi sekarang kita bisa memberikan algoritma bahwa si mesin ini bisa membuat algoritma sendiri gitu. Jadi bisa mempelajari apa yang terjadi di lingkungan, atau yang komputer sudah kumpulkan datanya berdasarkan hasil foto yang tadi didapatkan gitu. Terus tadi ada poin ya, Cina. Cina adalah negara yang memiliki paling banyak kamera ya di sini, dan setiap sudut jalannya katanya ada. Terus kecuali toilet, makanya katanya banyak orang banyak orang yang melakukan kegiatan di toilet karena hampir di setiap sudut jalan, public play, taman, pokoknya hampir semua itu ada kameranya. Jadi setiap sudut tidak kelihatan ya. Makanya mereka banyak menggunakan yang sifat-sifatnya privasi. Mereka banyak melakukannya di toilet. Itu fakta yang mungkin fun facts ya dari Liang dan Chin-Wei itu. Mungkin segitu. Ya, you may go.
Can we give a round of applause for Hugo? Thank you.
Oke.
That's how work. Amazing. Thank you.
Ya, thank you. Dibuka aja. Oke, saya buka untuk sesi pertanyaan dan jawaban. Mungkin siapa ada yang mau bertanya, tolong sampaikan nama ya dan apa lagi? Dari mana ya? Hobi nggak usah ya. Dari mana komunitasnya mungkin kalau ada ya. Nah, gitu aja ya. Oke? Gitu aja. Mungkin ada yang mau bertanya karena Chin-Wei dan Liang ini sangat membuka sekali untuk diskusi. Ya. Ada yang mau bertanya terkait dengan materi yang telah mereka sampaikan? Karena diskusi dong. Ada yang tanya? Oh, boleh. Oke.
Okay, I will ask about how long you do the research, because this is a really great information for us and really great history from the beginning until now. Actually, we really this is really difficult. We cannot do this for today, but still doing the research and not easy. How long you do the research?
I think for me it's like maybe like 2 years.
2 years.
Actually, the Taiwanese photography research in Taiwan is not really popular, actually, but yeah, we are going step by step, and there's some scholars doing some research on Taiwanese photographies, especially in the perspective of histories and the social relationship between photography and societies. And also, they are trying to, like, I think it's kind of weird to say, but nowadays the photography research in Taiwan is like they are not trying to build up a linear linear timeline about the Taiwanese photography history of Taiwanese photography, but they are trying to figure out what photography is actually doing and what the photo book is actually doing in every era, and they are trying to use a way called the discursive formation to deal about the questions and the issues between photography and societies. So how long have you done the research?
If I seriously research, maybe from 2015, and
2015.
Loosely maybe from 2010. Yeah.
It's a really long research.
Oke, jadi kayaknya Tegris itu menanyakan seberapa lama dan seberapa dalam, bagaimana mereka melakukan riset terkait dengan materi ini ya. Ada yang melakukan riset selama 2 tahun dan tadi Liang melakukan riset dari 2015 katanya ya. Yang riset apa yang dilakukan itu dilakukan langkah demi langkah ya pastinya. Menggali informasi dari masyarakat sosial dan kaitannya dengan fotografi itu sendiri. Singkatnya itulah. Dia maybe ada lagi pertanyaan, diskusi? Anything sih sebenarnya? Oke, silakan. Siapa namanya? Nanti dibahas.
Ya, perkenalkan, nama saya Yuga. Mau nanya, kan tadi kan ada beberapa karya buku foto yang ibaratnya udah terbit di awal-awal tahun gitu. Nah itu kan akhirnya dipublikasikan kembali. Nah itu proses publikasi kembali itu apakah tim LIB itu terlibat dalam publikasi itu atau bagaimana gitu? Terus gimana metode segala macamnya kayak gitu? Metode soal publikasi kembali itu.
Makasih. Okay, okay. Uh, okay, thank you. Okay, this is question from Yoga ya. Yoga, Yoga. Okay, his name is Yoga, and he asks about the photo books in the previous. Ada layarnya nggak?
Which
Saya nyalain
one?
dulu bisa biar lebih gampang penjelasannya. Jadi Yoga ini menanya. Yoga asks about the photo books, very old, the very first photo books in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah, about yeah, the
Joshua without price.
yeah, about the photograph, and he asks about how the book, how do how the book get published. Yeah, because the book is really old, and maybe I don't know. They Olga asks about the methods. Yeah, how the book can be redesigned or republished again in the for the modern society.
Yeah.
Okay, and because we in Indonesia we actually one of okay one
我去拿那本。
Indonesia actually there's no are you sure there is no book photo book? Oh, we don't know. We don't know about Indonesian book that getting republished, just such as tadi apa the very first book that one, just like that one. So we would ask he would ask to about the how the methods how the book can be republished and something like that, yeah. Bentar, takut ada. I'm sorry. And oh yeah, the progress how the book it can be republished. Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, and okay, is it redesigned by the government or something like that, or maybe organization, or maybe the Lightbox in the progress? I don't know. Please tell me. Tell us.
Okay, the story about this photo book. This was the original version. So it would be something like this. If you came across this book published more than 100 years ago, it would be something like this. But the one you see in here, the really small one, it was a reproduction. And so my advice to you, if you want to reproduce any historic photo book, the first one is to make sure the year of publication. If it's more than like 70 years ago, it depends on the copyright laws in a different country, but usually 50 or 70 years ago, you're free to do it. And so there'll be no trouble. And the one we do, the one reproduction in here is actually a collaboration between many people. I went to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., the U.S., because I know this book only exists in maybe 3 or 4 places that you can find them. The one is in the Library of Congress, and another 2 were in England, in Britain. One in the University of Oxford, one in their library, and also the Library of University of Cambridge. They have that, and the nearest one to Taiwan is the Toyo Library. In Tokyo, but I happen to be in the U.S., so I think I might as well just pay a visit. And when I was visiting the Library of Congress, I told them I wanted to check out the book. Of course, that's a rare book, so I had to make a reservation. And it can be done in the same day, so they're really quick. So I did it in the same day, and then I look at so they give me the book. So I asked for permission if I can photograph the the book. They say okay. So I make sure, are you sure? They say okay. Then I just do it with my cell phone. I probably couldn't do it with my SLR or like big camera, but with cell phone, I can get a really good good enough quality of this book. So I photograph every page, and then about half an hour, and it's done. And then that's how I get the file of this, and then I turn this file to the publisher of this, the Voices of Photography, and they do the translation and also the redesign. But they're trying to be close to the original version, but it's much smaller. The original one would be size like this, bigger than this one. And now finally, a little more than 1 year ago, the National Center of Photography and Imaging in Taipei finally established, and they know the story about this book, the importance of this book. So they managed to acquire one copy to their collection. So now people of Taiwan can really look at the book in their own eyes. They don't have to go a pro. So that's the story. Yeah.
Sudah. Udah. Ada.
Hello, my name is Fikri. I want to ask you about gimana sih tradisi militer kita itu sama. We have same common military tradition because we have we did dijajah Jepang under colonized by Japan. We have some common history colonized by Japan, so we have same military tradition, I think. Yang saya kira itu terwariskan gitu, gimana militer Jepang itu sangat memperhatikan arsip itu harus ketika kalah perang mereka langsung membakar arsip semua. Dan itu misalnya di militer Indonesia itu juga sama kayak gitu. Ketika ada sesuatu yang emang nggak sesuai dengan politik penguasa, itu bakal kayak memusnahkan bukti, istilahnya kayak gitu. In your research about this photography in Taiwan, is that any hard is you hard to find any arsip in that military era in Taiwan, in martial law era? Is that any hard finding?
Sure, I think you are asking about the data access, the archive access in the martial law period. And yeah, it's actually really hard in Taiwan. Am I getting your question right? Yeah, and
The artist or archive?
archive.
Archive. The archive. Yeah, the archive. Yeah. Because we have Taiwan and Indonesia have same historical about getting got colonized by Japan, and the archive is getting lost or burned or something like that. Yeah, how do you get the archives? The archive.
I think the archive is quite difficult also in Taiwan to access, and actually we do have some archives is literally exists in Taiwan now, but it's been controlled by the government, and if you want to access, you need to you kind of have to have a relationship between you and the archive itself. It's like, for example, you are the family of the archive. Like the archive is some of the political criminals, and if you want to access that archive, you need to be like you are the family or you are like something related to that person, and so for the researchers, it's really hard to get the archives actually. Also, the photographs is more difficult to access, and what we show in the PowerPoint, the documents, and what we trying to show you is like it's in the martial law period, but it's not the archives. It's like the photographers, like the artists, and they can publish some books. And this kind of data, this kind of photos, and this kind of photo books is more easier to access and to rediscover. And the one I mentioned, the JCRR, is more easier because it's ordered by America, not the Chinese government. So it's actually more easier to access. You don't need to have in relationship to the data, and you can access. But it's lack of research actually, and the research of the JCR archive is now it's like begin in like 2021 or 2020s, so it's really present. Yeah, and we are looking forward to more research to dealing with these archives, photograph archives, and some film archives in that era, so we can know and engage with that era that is being forbidden and been buried by the KMT party. Yeah.
Ya, tadi jadi jawabannya bagaimana mereka mendapatkan foto-foto dan mengakses foto-foto atau fotobook ya foto buku yang mereka gunakan. Pertama ya emang katanya sulit, tapi mereka juga berinteraksi dengan banyak orang. Contohnya kayak foto-foto keluarga dan segala macam. Jadi banyak orang, jadi itu satu-satunya. Kedua, mendapatkan sumber-sumber buku fotonya, tapi kebanyakan mereka mendapatkannya dari Amerika katanya. Kenapa? Karena di Taiwan itu sendiri atau di China itu kadang ada batasan tertentu. Jadi ada nggak boleh, ada yang nggak boleh gitu kan. Jadi untuk supaya lebih mudah, mereka mengaksesnya lewat Amerika gitu. Makanya mereka sampai ada. You are going to USA, right? You were go to America, right? No.
The archive is
but
actually
you get from the internet for American access.
The JCR archive is in two places. The first one is in the Congress Library in America, and is accessible online. So part of the archives.
Okay.
And another is actually in the Taiwanese archive centers, and you can access, but it's kind of mess because the search system is kind of mess, and it's hard to really using the search system they build to search these archives. So you kind of you will miss, or you will find out that there's no archive by using the search systems in the archive center. But actually there is, and you need to go to the archive center in person and trying to ask the archivist or the one who is in the archive center to access the archive. Yes.
Archive center in
Taiwan.
In
Taiwan.
Oke. Oke, jadi ya gitu salah satunya. Jadi mereka menggunakan akses itu juga, tapi mereka juga ada juga yang mendapatkan dari minta langsung, jadi ke bagian arsipnya ya. Nah, jadi langsung minta langsung. Jadi kalau misalkan secara umum mereka nggak boleh. Tapi kalau mereka jadi minta gitu-gitulah ya, kayak prison segala macam, akhirnya boleh. Gitu, semacam itu. Segitu cukup? Is it okay? Oke. Oke. Ada lagi mungkin pertanyaan? This is really rare opportunity. Jadi jarang banget ya ada yang mau share tentang sejarah fotografi di negara mereka, di Taiwan khususnya. dan juga bagaimana fotografi mereka saat ini di Taiwan. Ada lagi pertanyaannya mungkin?
If there's no question, I can show add a little bit additional. I don't show 那个白棚那个我刚没有讲。Yeah, I can show a photo emblem that is actually in the White Terror era. Yeah, in the martial law. I don't this one. This one. So this one is actually really interesting. It's like this is the photo emblem called Unspeakable Last Words, and is made by a political prisoner that is a victim of White Terror called Liang-Pin, and the context of making this photo book is that he was going to be executed in January 1954, and he made this this emblem in prison at October to December at 1953. So and the emblem is like the last word, but he's not trying to write in the last word to his family, but using some photographs, some of his families, and trying to like the photo montage to clip and redoing and doing and making it as an emblem to his family, to telling his last word before he get executed. And the interesting thing is that if we look into the photo, the emblem, there's no like some really sad message that Liu Yaoting is trying to send to his family. Besides, it's actually trying to tell his family that he's doing well in the prison and he will be well after he died. Yeah, that's really sad for me. And the photo book is being remastered and been remastered and been republished in like 2014, yeah, in the present days, and it's actually out of stock, so we can show it here. So we just let you guys see the pictures, and it's really rare to find the archives or the photos in the White Terror era. So this one is quite special and quite rare for us to find out and to show into you guys. Yeah.
Ya, ini buku yang sangat menarik banget ya. Jadi buku ini manual banget dikerjakan, kemudian dia jahit juga gitu satu persatu gitu. Itu ternyata di Taiwan sudah dikerjakan atau ada yang membuat seperti ini tahun 1954. Ya, udah dari tahun itu. Luar biasa ya, gila ya. Dan sekarang juga udah ada tuh yang bikin tuh, ada artisnya juga dijahit-jahit sama. Ya.
Ya.
Ya, ada lagi barangkali teman-teman yang mau bertanya. Ini ada Cik Asih. Baru datang. Bareng. So, aku mau kenalin Franz aja ya kayaknya. Franz mau dikenalin nggak? Silakan. Ada lagi barangkali yang mau bertanya. Buku ini karena sangat langka juga susah didapatkan, makanya dan agak susah juga direproduksi kembali gitu. Jadi ya dokumentasinya seperti ini di foto ya. Ya. Ada lagi mungkin?
Okay. Maybe I want to ask. I don't know that I'm doing this and that before that, but when you say about I read the curatorial, and you kind of write that about contemporary, and if I not wrong, you write that the contemporary in the terms of contemporary, it's actually it's kind of defined that it's uprising maybe in the Western society, and maybe in America and in Europe, and you tell me you tell us a little about what now in Taiwan is maybe it's much more like a hacking hacking anything. It's kind of you say about AI generate and maybe surveillance and etc. And maybe what is you can answer as maybe as Taiwanese community or as yourself or Lightbox. Do you see any difference when people say it about contemporary in the Western society and in the Taiwan itself? Do you get my question? Sorry, thank you.
The question, the research question of the reflection on the idea of contemporary is actually initially not my question. I know what my take on that. It was more of his question, but I can share my my thoughts. To me, the idea of contemporary, of course, we use it every day. It's a tense. It's like you're talking about what happened recently or what's on your mind. So to me, the core idea of contemporary is not about time. It can be historic, it can be now, it's what's happening now, but also about future. It could coexist. But if anything that's irrelevant to you, even it's what happened next to you, I wouldn't describe it as contemporary. So it's not influence you or affect your way of life. So to me, the core importance, the core value, the core idea of when you use the word contemporary meaning is it's a relevance. And then and if it's irrelevant, it's you don't really even it's happening now or even I wouldn't bother to spend time or pay your attention to it. But if even it's something that's happened 1,000 years ago, but if it's relevance to you, or if you can be used as a friend of reference or compare what's happening now, it can be contemporary. Yeah, and so that's the idea of contemporary. And what I think the most pressing issue concerning photography is digital democracy. Because we cannot take our liberty for granted, and liberty to me, or the freedom of human mind or human spirit, is the most important thing about photography. If we don't have that, then there's no photography. There's only control, manipulations, and coercions. There's no freedom and no individuality in it. So that's why I concern about democracy the most, because it's hard earned. In our experience, it's never take for granted. So many people sacrifice their life; they're just gone. But the younger generation, when I talk to some of my younger friends, they were born with freedom and democracy, so they're sometimes they're kind of ignorant of what happened in the past. So you have to try to find a way. You don't try to preach them. You're trying to tell stories, and so that concerns them or make them interested. So make them realize that hey, it's a privilege, and so if we are not vigilant about what we have, a democracy can be really vulnerable and fragile, and can be gone in an instant. So, and that's and I see some signs of bad signs of the power of photography was concentrate or centralized in a few, like corporations or the authoritative regimes. It's not a good sign, and what people's life would like in this kind of situation. And censorship comes in a very different form now. In the past, censorship meaning forbid people from banning some books or forbid you from being in contact with certain information. But now nowadays, the censorship, if one in a democratic country, it's easy. You just provide a lot of irrelevant information or entertainments, or like they don't even have to be disinformation, misinformation. You just flooded the viewers with a lot of irrelevant, so you'll be distracted. So your attention, you won't pay your attention to the most important things. So yeah, that's why some people would say clarity is power nowadays, because in the old days, knowledge is power. And in the colonial era, information or visual information is power, because that means intelligence. But now it's really the clarity. There's so many information. How do you make your own judgment? And how do you know that it's your judgment? You are not influenced by it's your free choice, your free will. And ironically, the people who tend to think they have the free will were the people, the ones that are most easily to be manipulated. So, but okay, I'll cut it there. That's not my research question, though.
So no translate. Okay, so in my opinion, why I raise this question is because I just see that there's a lot of misusing of this term contemporary photography in Taiwanese society, especially in some community of the photography creators, and that led me to think that so what actually the contemporary means except from the tense that Liang has discussed earlier, what contemporary actually is in terms of the art or the photographies, and by so if we look back to the history of art and the history of photography in the world, the contemporary is actually after the post-conceptual art, and some scholars even claim that there's no such thing called contemporary. The contemporary art is actually a kind of post-conceptual art. It's an interesting point of view, but yeah, I will put it I'll just put it down. We are not discuss this. And so another question is that is the Western term is actually suitable to the Taiwanese society and the way we are discussing the contemporary photography in Taiwan, because actually the process and the progress of or the development of the photography is actually quite different between Taiwanese history of Taiwanese photography and world history of photography. So I would say that if we look to the world history of photography, so it's like conceptual art and post-conceptual art and contemporary. But in Taiwan, I think it's like no, we don't have the progress. Like I don't know what is conceptual art, conceptual photography in Taiwan. I can't really recognize anyone is doing this, and I'm not suggesting we have to like copy the progress of the history of photography in the world. So the question here is like we need to figure out the own definition about contemporary in Taiwan and fit in Taiwan and fit in the photography creation in Taiwan. So what is actually contemporary is, and I don't really have the answer now. And what I'm trying to say and why I trying to raise this question is that I trying to discuss, trying to problematic the word we are used to using without questioning the definition of the works contemporary. So the action of questioning and the action of rethinking the contemporary is the main reason I trying to raise this question. So I'm not trying to give you a answer and only answer, but I'm trying to like open up the questioning field or the discussion field that has been forbidden or has been forgot by the one who use the term really quickly without thinking about the means of the terms contemporary. Yeah, so yeah.
Just a quick note. So I think from our previous discussion, the impression I get is that when you use the term, I mean, there's so many interesting ideas from outside Taiwan. It's from Japan, Korea, China, Hong Kong, or European country, or the U.S. It's okay. You should expose to like outside idea. You should be open-minded. It's really good. But at the same time, you also need the critical reflection. You can't really just appropriate it out of the cultural context or historical context. And so to be a responsible user of this idea, of course, you can borrow a lot of idea, but when you're trying to internalize it, it's really important to be cautious about how they develop this idea and also the power relationship behind each naming. Because it's like the example that I gave in the very early of the short talk. It's like say the Han people in China, they like to perceive everything their own way, with no regard of the other people, and with no respect of their other people's culture. And I think that was a really bad bad practice. And also that reflect their ideology, and then I don't like that ideology. And it's not taking the power of photography to a good direction, and we should point that out. It's not cool. It's not good. So we want. It's a double-edged sword, and how to use it, and its relationship to the political ideology. It's really important. So that's why when I look back at history, it's really not about memorizing all these facts or what happened. It's really, when we talk about history, it's more about how can we liberate from the past so we could look forward. Understanding our relationship to the past, so we know where to go, and we know we know the injustice in the past, so we know, hey, we're still alive and we have to do something. Or we have to remember it, and we have to pass down the knowledge. So that's the most to me one of the most important lesson when you study the history. Yeah, but I'm not a historian, so don't listen to me.
Hello. Good afternoon. Sorry, I came late, so I cannot add anything to the discussion. But I want to add something to your statement about freedom. I would say that freedom, like Eric Fromm says, that there are freedom to and freedom from, and the one that if we want to emancipate in life and add ourselves into life and pursuing life with clarity, as you said, I would say that photography is a good investment to in pursuing our identity as ourselves, and therefore from that we can make a line with the changement and the life around ourselves. So I would say that photography is quite important as a tool, as we have a camera in our hands in everyday environment of our life, and we are being ruled and being also participate in life through photography. So, but this is very important that we should using photography with the intention that we are participating in life with our identity.
Okay, thank you for adding some informations about the freedom itself in photography. Do you have any?
I totally agree with you, but what you say remind me of one experience that I have. I mean, one news I came across a couple years ago about how we as a human and this relationship between human and the tool. We tend to think human is the user of the tool, but if you think if that's the way of thinking, and you may be wrong, because a lot of time it's your tool that's using you. And so, and it's this interaction is always at play. Say camera. I mean, I can use a cell phone camera. It's so convenient. But the thing is, if I get used to it, if I become dependent upon it, I stop making plan, and I stop gradually losing my ability to tell the exposure I used to know, and I don't. I don't need any preparations. No. But in the old days, when I use a large format camera, a medium format camera, I know there's so much limitations. And so I have to prepare, because that's the interaction. And then so I get this funny reflection because of a social study that was done a couple years ago. The study was to tell the correlationship between the tool that you pay for your lunch and then and your choice of like health food or trash food. They studied the high school student in the United States, and they tried to see if they what's the correlation between the method of payment and their choice of food. And they realized there's a strong correlation when high school students use cash, they purchase more greener food, better food. But if they use credit card, they tend to go to the trash food or the fast food. And a interpretation of that is because when you use the credit card, you won't get charged now. It was like a month later, or you can also pay in installments. So the consequence is not immediate. So that's kind of influence their psyche. But when you pay by cash, like your money's gone. So they view kind of subconsciously view the when they consume the meal, the consequence kind of immediate. So that's like how the psyche would at play by your tool and you. So I think that kind of applies to the camera we use. Yeah, if we use a very slow camera, a slow practice, yeah, there would be very interesting chemistry between you. But if you use a cell phone, yeah, there's good and bad. Yeah. But yeah, that's something I kind of reminded by your stories. Thank you for sharing. It was a really good one.
Okay, that's jadi ya terima kasih telah berbagi katanya ya. Mungkin katanya kalau misalkan kita punya kamera kayak cellphone kamera, kayak kamera di handphone yang serba otomatis, yang serba canggih gitu ya, berbeda banget dengan kamera-kamera yang pada zaman yang dulu yang butuh banyak persiapan ya, kayak kalau dulu zaman kamera analog, kita harus ngecek cahaya itu dari samping sudut sana untuk mengetahui exposure yang tepat gitu kan. Nah, seperti itulah contohnya. Jadi kalau misalkan kita hanya menganggap kamera sebagai alat, ya seperti kita juga harus menggunakan pikiran kita sebagai manusia juga untuk menghasilkan foto yang bernilai lah istilahnya ya gitu. Mungkin Ya, karena kalau di satu-satu bakal panjang, jadi ya intinya mohon maaf ya. Oke, ada lagi mungkin? Oh, boleh. Oke, thank you.
But I think there's a different way on in building narration between the analog the generation and today's generation, because in today's generation the handphones is like the extension of their life. Yeah, and the narration is already there, so they really know what they want to take to add into the narration of themselves. So in analog generation, the identity is actually built by hands, by tactile experience. But in the digital experience, they are having their own way in building the narration. So I couldn't say that the photography that being taken by handphone is trash. No, they have different values and different ways on building the narration. Thank you.
Thanks for your input. I have no intention to say that they make trash. But no. I totally agree with you. Yes, and I think for a photographer today, it would be great if the photographer had this experience using analog photography and also had equally experience in digital photography. If you can have both, so you can compare, you know the differences, and that's important to get a complete experience, a photography experience. So at least for now. So yeah, I mean, I use it all the time. I wouldn't say that they're trash. I mean, a lot of them were like not good, but it's more of a note taking, just memory keepers, stuff like that. So yeah. Thank you for your point, for your input.
Ya, tadi ada sedikit misperspektif dalam mengartikan kata dari ini. Cuman ya tadi maksudnya bukan ke arah sana katanya, tapi maksudnya lebih apa ya tadi? Saya lupa. Ada yang mau bantu? Udah. Gitu. Oke. Gitu ya. Udah, tutup aja. Oke, ya tadi before I close this discussion, and thank you for terima kasih untuk semuanya yang sudah hadir dari teman-teman fotografer ya. Oke. Terima kasih buat teman-temannya, dan terima kasih thank you for Jian-Win and Liang for Chin-Wei saya simpulkan aja langsung ya. Oke, jadi satu kata yang mungkin yang paling the core of the point ya kayaknya knowledge is a power. Jadi kalau powernya, jadi knowledge di sini maksudnya apa dalam fotografi? Jadi kita dalam berfotografi itu perlu bijak dalam berfotografi, karena dengan berfotografi kita bisa mencantumkan banyak informasi ke dalam foto atau beberapa informasi dalam foto yang bisa orang tafsirkan ya dalam berbagai hal yang bisa berimpak yang berakibat kepada banyak hal, yaitu kepada mengubah pikiran orang, politik, bisnis dan lain-lain. Jadi tadi kata Liang-Wei ya, photograph can be a double-edged sword ya. Jadi fotografi bisa jadi, foto itu bisa jadi pedang bermata dua yang bisa membunuh kita atau yang bisa kita gunakan untuk bermanfaat, untuk bisa lebih bermanfaat untuk diri kita dan lingkungan kita sendiri gitu. Mungkin segitu aja. Mungkin terima kasih lagi untuk semuanya. Terima kasih untuk Red Rose Center and Lightbox Photo Library for having these great discussions. And maybe it's really rare that we don't know when we can recreate it again. But really great. Thanks for Lightbox Photo Library and Red Rose Centers for the. Okay, that's all for me. And from Red Rose Center. Thank you for. Udah, terima kasih lagi jadinya. Ya udah deh, tutup aja. Alhamdulillah, thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ya, terima kasih ke Ugo, terima kasih. Thank you so much Liang and Azi, thank you so much. Terima kasih juga teman-teman yang sudah hadir. Kita lanjutkan, kalau misalnya ada yang mau diskusi secara informal, ngobrol aja langsung ke Liang. Ya, mumpung ada Liang di sini sama Azi. Terima kasih semuanya.